Hello all. Welcome back to Stories from History, where we go over some interesting stories from history, whether it's about people, events, places, stories, whatever it is. If it's an interesting story from history, we're willing to tell it. And today I thought we'd carry on from my last video about the assassination of Julius Caesar to talk a little bit more about why the Republic fell and why Julius Caesar's death led to the fall of the Republic, because it wasn't just Julius Caesar by himself. Julius Caesar didn't arrive in a vacuum. Rome was already very politically unstable by the time Julius Caesar rose to power. And in this video, we're going to go over a little bit of the conditions that led to this. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, why was the Roman Republic already doomed? Now, that's a great question. It wasn't just a single act of violence that collapsed the Roman Republic. It collapsed slowly, over generations, until by the time Julius Caesar was murdered in 44 BC, this system that he was accused of destroying was already broken beyond repair. So, his death was a shock to Rome, but it wasn't a surprise, because Rome had been used to this type of thing for a while now. But to understand why, we'll have a little look at what the Republic had become. So, at the time of Julius Caesar's death, the Roman Republic was created for a small agricultural city-state. So the institutions that made the Republic, assumed that it would have a limited amount of territory, it would have a citizen body of independent farmers, it would have some short military campaigns fighting neighbors, and unpaid political service by wealthy elites. But as we know, Rome did not remain a city-state. By the 2nd century BC, Rome was the master of the Mediterranean. Spain, Greece, North Africa, Asia Minor. Decisions that affected millions were still being made by a Senate that was designed to govern just a single city. And the Republic never adapted its structure to match this massive scale. So, power became informal, authority became personal, and ambition was allowed to grow. More than grow, was allowed to explode. And this led to an empire of extreme inequality. So of course, in all of its conquests, Rome found unimaginable wealth. But all of this moved upwards. These wars would produce huge numbers of slaves, big farm estates owned by elites, and cheap slave labor that destroyed small farms. So these independent farmers that were once the backbone of Roman society, they were ruined. And they all just drifted into Rome, landless, unemployed, and depending on handouts from the sea. So Rome had become a city of extremes. Some people were outrageously wealthy, and others were extremely desperate. So this was more than economic collapse. This was a social fracture. And unfortunately, any attempts to fix this imbalance failed catastrophically and were often met with violence. So, for instance, I'm sure some of you have heard about the Gracchi brothers. These were two brothers, two tribunes of the plebs, representatives of the people. And they, Tiberius Gracchus and Gaius Gracchus, attempted to propose land reforms, grain subsidies, and limits on the power of elites. And they did this by doing something unprecedented. They appealed directly to the people. Instead of going to the Senate with their reforms and whatnot, they went to the people. As they were tribunes of the plebs, they had this power. And they were very successful, and the Senate did not like this. As you will see, the Senate is very finicky about anybody attempting to curtail or limit its power. So when the Gracchi come along and attempt to redistribute land and bypass the Senate and just appeal to the vote of the people instead, it does not end well. And we see this in 133 BC, as Tiberius Gracchus was beaten to death in a riot led by senators. And this was the first political helping of blood in Republican politics. This was a very, very rare thing to see in Roman politics, and it set a dangerous precedent. A decade later, Gaius Gracchus met the same fate. And this was the moment where the Republic crossed the line, because from now on, violence was a perfectly, legible way to end political disputes. Too much reform would be answered by violence, and legality mattered less than physical power. And the Republic had taught its future destroyers a powerful lesson: that if you threaten the elite order, expect blood. And so amidst this chaos and amidst this inequality, in steps a man called Gaius Marius, a general. And this guy was a military genius, but his real revolution was within the army. It was structural. Before him, soldiers were landowners who served briefly, then came back home. But Marius changed this. He opened the army to landless citizens, promising them pay, loot, and most importantly, land after their service. So this solved Rome's growing manpower crisis. However, it created something new and dangerous. Soldiers now depended on their general rather than the state. Their loyalty shifted. And Marius didn't mean to do this. He didn't mean to destroy the Republic. But he created the conditions where a general could. And it was Caesar that would later inherit this army. Now, there's another figure amidst all this that's very important to name. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, Marius' rival in the First Roman Civil War. And Sulla did something that no Roman had ever done before. He was the first to march his army on Rome itself. This was not against foreigners, but against fellow Romans, his political opposition back in Rome. And this was huge, because this shattered the taboo of ever bringing soldiers or, using force to control, the Senate, using the army to control the political system. This was not seen before. Someone just coming to the front gates and, demanding power for themselves with their army. This was insane. And this was partially because of the reforms put in place by Marius, meant that the soldiers were very loyal to their generals rather than the state, and Sulla made the most of this. He seized power. He declared himself a dictator. And then he unleashed something called prescriptions. These were public death lists where enemies were basically had their names put on a list, and legally anybody was allowed to execute them, and their property was seized. And thousands died in this way. But funnily enough, this was not the most destructive thing that Sulla did. He then resigned. And he showed that a man could seize absolute power, rule through violence, and kill his enemies legally, and still claim to act for the Republic. So this was the world that Caesar grew up in. He was taught that marching on Rome worked, a dictatorship was survivable, and violence could be justified as a restoration of the Republic. So the Rubicon was already crossed, and this was decades before Caesar had reached it. So Caesar was the perfect product of a broken system. He didn't invent any of this. He inherited it. He saw the failure of reform. He saw the loyalty of armies to generals, and he saw the weakness of the Senate, as well as the normalization of dictatorship. When he conquered Gaul, he used Marius's army system. When he crossed the Rubicon, he followed Sulla's precedent. And when he ruled as dictator, he wrapped his power in republican legality, just as Sulla had. And this meant that the Republic no longer had the tools to stop him, only violence. And by 44 BC, senators did not kill Caesar because he destroyed the Republic. They killed him because he exposed that it was already gone. The Republic could no longer manage inequality or control its armies. It could no longer reform peacefully, and it didn't have the ability to restrain powerful individuals. So killing Caesar removed the man on top, but it did not remove the Marian armies, Sullan precedents, or the fractures exposed by the Gracchi brothers. The system that made a Caesar remained. And the final irony of this is that the conspirators believed that when they killed Caesar, they were reenacting the ancient overthrow of kings. But Rome was no longer that republic. The republic had died when reformers were beaten to death, when generals claimed personal armies, and when Rome was conquered by Romans. So Caesar did not end the republic. He merely proved that it could no longer survive. So to close out, the Roman Republic did not fall in 44 BC. It had been falling for hundreds of years. Caesar was simply the moment when everyone finally noticed. And so, that's the end to our video about why the Republic fell. If you have any suggestions for any other types of videos or anything you want to see, please let us know in the comments. Or please send a like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We are a small channel, we're trying to grow. So please do send some support. But again, thank you for watching. Keep studying, keep reading, keep being passionate about history. And Stories from History, we're signing out.